Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. Valhalla at Blackpool Pleasure Beach is still currently going through its extensive refurbishment, so I thought it would be cool to share my thoughts on what I'd like to see change with this ride, and also what I'd like to see stay the same with this ride, because honestly, although Valhalla does need improving in some areas, I feel like the ride does a lot right as well. So I'm going to talk through each scene of Valhalla and share in depth what I would love to see happen. I'm trying not to let my imagination run completely wild with me because, let's face it, we've got to think realistically here. We've got to think about budget, finances, the money. So let's begin. I just want to say that I wouldn't be surprised if the boats for Valhalla will have some restraints when the ride reopens. I'm thinking probably lap bars. Okay, going into the ride after making your way through the entrance skull, you'll make a turn to the left and you'll see the ride's first lift hill in front of you. This area, in my opinion, is in need of updating because it's the rider's first impressions of inside the ride. It's what they see first before anything else. You have the two-headed dog to the right of you, along with some other odd bits and pieces of theming, like the flashing lights and another beast-like creature, maybe a wolf, watching you from above the lift hill. Whilst you make your way up the lift hill, you're then greeted by a projection of a Norse god who speaks to you. I'd like to see more of an atmosphere brought to this part of the ride. First off, I think it needs to be darker in this section. I don't believe that the team would have to do a lot to this section to make it more atmospheric, but honestly, I would get rid of the two-headed dog and I would replace it with a newer animatronic dog, maybe a one that scares guests by leaping out at them trying to attack the boat. Keep the fire at either side of the lift hill because if it's made darker here, then the fire will really contribute to setting that dark, creepy, scary vibe. And also keep the beast above the lift hill. But I would love to see the beast above the lift hill have some mist coming out from its mouth just to add a bit more here. And then completely replace the projection of the Norse god. At the end of the day, the technology around projections has massively improved in the last 22 years since Valhalla opened, so it would really be nice if they improved that. After climbing the first lift hill, you take a sharp right turn and you pass by a large demon-like head. I think this needs replacing with something else. If money and budget were not being considered here, I'd have said put in a massive screen and have it play a very large battle scene with Vikings. But because I highly doubt that would happen due to the massive cost, I'd maybe have some animatronic Vikings fighting with swords and shouting at each other. Thing is, that large head takes up a very large amount of space, so really they could do a lot here if they got rid of that. They could definitely really set up a good scene here. Then you have the smaller demon-like head that pops out at riders from underneath a hole in the wall. Long story short, get rid of this. I always thought this effect seemed really out of place here, and a lot of the time the boats pass through this section quite quickly and it seems as though the effect can't keep up with the pace of the boats. So I feel like a lot of the time this effect is missed by riders anyway, especially those in the front row. I would replace this with an animatronic of a Viking with a bow and arrow aiming it at riders. I think they could actually create a really cool effect here in this section by using bursts of air to simulate Vikings firing arrows, kind of like what Thorpe Park does during its indoor section. Boats would enter the steam room after this, and I honestly wouldn't change this room because when the steam is actually fully working, this area creates a really nice atmosphere. As riders come out of that steam room, they enter a short corridor where literally nothing happens other than there's some lighting effects. There's also natural light to be seen from the bottom of this corridor due to the turntable section of the ride, which is open to the elements. First off, I think this would be a great time in the ride to try to incorporate the turnaround section by adding some signs on the walls, warning riders that there's danger up ahead due to a dead end. I would make this corridor a lot darker as well. I'd have some flickering lights above each sign. I'd have the turntable section completely blocked off so that no natural light could get in, and this also would keep riders fully immersed within Valhalla. And once riders actually arrive at the turntable, I'd have maybe some fire effects on either side of the wall here and a light on the wall just to emphasise the fact that this is a dead end. Next up is the backwards drop down into the wind tunnel. I wouldn't change this at all other than just adding some whispering voices in the dark just to kind of add to that creepy kind of atmosphere. Facing forward once more, the riders then come out into the cold room where the temperature drops and there's snow everywhere. This scene needs some life. Just by adding some better moving animatronics in here, I think that would make a massive difference. I love the change in the temperature, so keep that, but I'd add some mist in here along with a few other bits and pieces. This may be a bit too much to ask, but I would love it if they had snow falling from the ceiling in here just to set the scene a little bit more, maybe with some wind effect as well, simulating a blizzard. Other than that, I don't have any ideas for this room, but if you guys do, then let me know in the comment section down below. Moving on from this room is the first forward-facing drop of the ride. I wouldn't change this section because the fact that the ride is in pitch black darkness before this drop, it actually creates a lot of tension. After this drop, the boat passes through a tunnel of water. I'd really love to see this effect stay, but if it's going to stay, it needs to be refurbished. After then passing through a waterfall, boats then begin their climb up to the top of the second lift hill of the ride. This next section of the ride is a one that I really wouldn't change too much because I really do love it. But unfortunately, the effects definitely need to be more reliable, particularly the fire effects. This section is the thunderstorm section. I do honestly love all the effects here. The thing that I would definitely change though is that I would add more Viking animatronics in there just to add a bit more movement and bring a bit of life to it. The boat then passes a skeleton with smoke effects coming from it. I would keep the skeleton, but to just try and give it a bit more life, if it would at all be possible, I would change this to an actual moving animatronic rather than just a still figure. Following this is another very similar scene. I would either add something else here or just have it pitch black because I feel this scene is too similar to the previous skeleton scene. Now it's time for the second drop and the ring of fire effect, which I would love to see stay, but it needs to be used more frequently for more boats on the ride. I think that this effect should be on for every single boat that passes through that drop. They have a really great effect here. If you're not expecting it, it is a one that can startle you. It would be a real shame to lose this effect, and it would also be a shame for them to keep it, but for them to not use it more frequently. Finally, we have the ride finale, which uses very heavy fire effects. Here, the boat passes through large scenes of Viking longboats with fire explosions. Again, I really wouldn't change this. I love how full on the finale is, and I love how over the top the fire effects are. Though this scene will probably be impacted in some way because the Pleasure Beach have announced that they are trying to make Valhalla more economic to run. So there it is, my in-depth thoughts on what I would personally change on Valhalla for its refurbishment. I hope that you've enjoyed. If you have any ideas of what you'd like to see change in Valhalla, then let me know in the comments section. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, click on that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video.